Okay. All right, so we are being recorded. Hopefully that just notified you. This is just so that we can post this to the RFA website after for folks who weren't able to make it, and that you all can reference it if you didn't catch everything today. So with that, I think we can go ahead and jump in. We're just about 3 minutes after. So I'm Sam Dyna. I'm with the Maine Department of Labor, and I am here with my colleagues from the Maine Department of Labor and the Maine Department of Education. And we have been partnering on this educator apprenticeship effort over the last couple of months, and we're very excited to be announcing some funding to scale some pilot programs for teacher pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs across the state. And my other speakers, I'll ask you to introduce yourselves as you jump in and have a slide. Awesome. So we are gathered here today to talk about the Educator Apprenticeship RFA. So our goals for today are to review some of the components of the RFA. We've received a couple of kind of potential questions, so we want to put some answers out there, as well as get some additional questions from this group, and then talk about kind of the timeline and next steps. Expectations for today is, again, we'll walk through that request for applications. We expect to get some questions from you all, but we will not be answering all questions today. This is really kind of information gathering, getting a sense from you all on what questions you have. All of those will be gathered and posted in a Q&A summary on the procurement website, along with this slide deck and the reporting. So that Q&A summary will be posted by September 12th. So we are really in information gathering mode today. And then we will be posting that on September 12th. All right. So this is all right from the RFA, but wanted to just ground us in the goals of this endeavor. The goals of this work are really to expand the number of certified pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship programs to support educator recruitment and retention efforts. The second is to increase the number of underrepresented workers within educator apprenticeship programs, really focusing on people of color, multilingual individuals, people with disabilities, and individuals in rural communities. And then the third is really to continue our efforts to develop an integrated, sustainable, and effective apprenticeship system throughout the state. So a couple of pieces that you'll see within the RFA and within the application. Proposals should seek to do one or more of the following. So these are really the activities that you'll be looking to do. Either developing or expanding educator certified pre-apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship programming, developing new on-the-job learning or classroom training to support educator pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship programs, or expanding organizational capacity to develop or expand educator apprenticeship programs. So that could be capacity to expand the programming itself, to raise awareness of apprenticeship as a viable educator prep tool, fostering stronger partnerships with higher eds and SAUs, facilitating mentor trainings. That's one of the pieces that we'll talk a little bit about is required within this model, as well as supporting educator apprentice retention efforts by connecting those apprentices to supported services. Please feel free to use the chat throughout today's presentation to ask any questions. If we have answers that are in the RFA already, we will provide those answers, or we will collect those and put them in the Q&A summary posted on September 12th. All right, so that's just very overall background on the goals and what you can use this funding to do. And a little bit more on eligibility, I will pass it to my colleague, Tammy.
Thank you, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tammy Ranger, and I'm the Director of Workforce Development and Innovative Pathways at the Maine Department of Education. And I have to say, this first week back of school, I've been out of the classroom now 4 years. And this week, it always, even though I've been out for 4 years, I know this is a big week, and I'm thinking about that with all our educators. So this is exciting work, and we're very happy to be partnering with the Maine Department of Labor on expanding educator recruitment and retention efforts via educator apprenticeships. And so see, these are some of the eligibility requirements and program requirements. So the eligible organizations to apply, of course, are school administrative units, and we welcome collaboration among multiple school administrative units, adult education programs, CTE schools, accredited institutions of higher education, education industry associations, community-based organizations, and workforce development entities. And when we were designing this work, we looked at two pathways, one focusing on high school students and the other pathway focusing on adult learners. So this could be career changers or adults are currently working in schools or working outside of an education setting. And then the shortage area target occupations are education technicians, general elementary, K-8, early childhood, which is pre-K-K, teacher of students with disabilities, pre-K, teacher of students with disabilities, K-8, teacher of students with disabilities, 7-12, blind and visually impaired, K-12, deaf, hearing impaired, K-12, English language arts, 7-12, mathematics, 7-12, middle level science, 5-8, adapted physical education, K-12, theater, K-12, industrial arts, technology, K-12, and administrative positions, thinking about principals. And
Okay.
I think I'm turning this over to Joan.
Yep. Thank you, Tammy. My name is Joan Dolan, and I'm the Director of Apprenticeship and Strategic Partnerships for the Maine Department of Labor. And we're very excited to be able to offer you this RFA through funding provided by the Maine Jobs and Recovery Act, as well as the State Apprenticeship Equity and Inclusion federal grant that was awarded to the Maine Department of Labor a couple years ago. So just to go over some of the program requirements, programs must comply with current Maine certification requirements, and that would be both Department of Education and pre-apprenticeship certification requirements that are talked about a little bit later here. Funding for the development of a registered apprenticeship program must include at least 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning and 144 hours of classroom training to support that on-the-job learning that are aligned with and working towards state-identified licensing certification. And those are the minimums of every registered apprenticeship program in our country and also in the state of Maine. Apprenticeship programs can go up to 5 years in length, but I don't imagine any of these educator programs would go that long. The program must include a direct connection to apprenticeship employer or employers willing and able to hire apprentices. Apprenticeship is a full-time paid occupation, so these apprentices must be hired. It's important to know that registered apprenticeship has no trademark on the word apprenticeship. But our definition of apprenticeship means an individual who is hired. And they must have mentored on-the-job learning and access to classroom training to support what they're learning on the job. Funding for the development of certified pre-apprenticeship programs must comply with pre-apprenticeship certification standards as outlined in the Maine Apprenticeship Program's Chapter 3 rules, and there's a link there to those Chapter 3 rules. Participants in registered apprenticeship programs must be employed and receive wages during their registered apprenticeship programs. Grantees are encouraged to provide financial compensation to participants in certified pre-apprenticeship programs, though compensation is not required if the pre-apprentice is not employed. Identify and award college credits for demonstrated competency of required classroom learning outcomes through the apprenticeship schedule of work. Provide related supports for mentors, including but not limited to dedicated mentor training and compensation, and training that leads to certifications in teacher shortage areas based on the 2022-23 teacher shortage areas that Tammy just went over, and recently identified shortage areas through that link there. And they will be given priority consideration for funding. I think that's it for me, Sam.
And back to me, collaboration requirements. So you must be an SAU or collaborate and establish formal partnership agreements with one or more SAUs to deliver on-the-job training. Must provide required related technical instruction in-house or collaborate and establish formal partnership agreements with at least one of the following. So high schools, CTE schools, Maine Community College System, adult education, University of Maine system, and or another education provider. If proposing a high school student pathway approach, school counselors and administrators should be included within the program design to ensure alignment with existing programs. So for example, that's extended learning opportunities there, ELO, and early college. Must establish a partnership with associations that represent educators. Establish partnerships with one or more of the following organizations to recruit new pre-apprentices and/or apprentices: high schools, CTE schools, Maine Community College System, adult education programs, community-based organizations, and/or similar entities. Intentionally engage and incorporate direct feedback from the target apprentice or pre-apprentice audience into program design. Partner with an organization with experience in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and/or establish a plan to engage with the identified priority communities. Letters of support from proposed partner organizations are encouraged. So if you're partnering with an organization to support financial management or of the grant or subgranting to a partner organization, letters of support are required. And directly or through partnerships must provide access to interpersonal supports, for example, mentorship, and access to wraparound supports to address other pre-apprentice and apprentice needs, for example, transportation or childcare. And all set with that one. And I'm going to introduce my colleague, Michael Perry. I'll let him introduce himself. Michael.
Thanks, Tammy. My name is Michael Perry. I'm the Acting Director of Higher Education and Educator Support Services at the Maine DOE. I have some answers to Tammy's burning questions, and then spoiler, I will have questions for Tammy.
Yeah, we just thought we would mix it up a little bit here. Okay, so Michael, the minimum number of apprentices served is 12. Can we collaborate to attain this goal?
Yes, Tammy, you can. To build an integrated statewide apprenticeship system, we are encouraging organizations to collaborate to expand their reach to serve at least 12 individuals over the course of the grant period.
Thank you. Now, is it permitted to subgrant funds to partner with other organizations?
Yes, Tammy, it is. Please include letters of support with organizations to whom you intend to subgrant.
Thank you. And finally, do we need to have established MOUs with partners?
Not at the time of grant submission, but however, we anticipate MOUs would need to be developed among partners to run an effective apprenticeship program. We do require letters of support from partners to whom you intend to subgrant funds.
Thank you.
Tammy, yes, no problem. Well, I have some questions for you now.
Okay.
In the described terms, it states that equipment is any supply valued greater than $5,000, and this is not allowed in the program. Is this true?
Well, equipment is generally not an allowable expense. Supplies are an allowable expense. The cost of any single item must be less than $5,000, or else it is considered equipment.
Okay, well, that makes sense, but can grant money be used for staff?
Good question. RFA grant funds may support the salary and benefits of staff if they are specifically supporting the expansion of pre-apprenticeship and/or apprenticeship programming. Staff hired using grant funds must become subject matter experts in registered apprenticeships.
Okay, and can funding be used to pay apprentice wages?
No, no, no. No, apprentice wages are not an allowable expense. However, the Maine Department of Labor will provide supports to defray startup costs of developing new apprenticeship programs, such as incentives for registering new occupations, starting new programs, and classroom offsets for apprentices.
Okay, well, how will the Department of Labor and Department of Education provide support to develop new apprenticeship program offerings?
All right, the Department of Labor will provide ongoing technical assistance on registered apprenticeship and grant requirements quarterly and as requested by the grantees. And the Maine Department of Education will provide mentor training and certification technical assistance to ensure an alignment with current certification standards.
Great.
Wendy, I think you're up next.
I am up next, and my name is Wendy Kostenbetter. I'm the program manager for the Maine Apprenticeship Program, and I work with all of these folks in front of you. And here we have provided you some helpful resources to add a little more brain power to what we're doing behind the scenes here. But most importantly, I want you to acknowledge two pieces that we've worked diligently with all of our partners, and that those include the schedules of work that you'll see right here on the approved K through 12 time-based competency hybrid work process schedules. Those have already been approved and they're already in play.
Thanks, Wendy. We just wanted to make sure that folks, you don't have to recreate the wheel. There are lots of states that are already doing teacher apprenticeship programs, so we encourage you to take a look at what other states are doing. And we have 2 registered programs in Maine already with the Gorham School District and Washington County Community College. Not married to those models, but they're great models for inspiration for you all to take a look at. Joan.
Okay, so down to a little bit of the nitty-gritty here, the contract terms, timing, and other important information. The period of performance is from September 2023 through June 2025. Applicants will be initially awarded funding for the above period with an option to extend until June of 2026, pending the progress towards performance metrics. Funding for apprenticeship programming is based on the total number of new apprentices and/or pre-apprentices served through the grant opportunity. Total funding may not exceed $6,000 per apprentice or pre-apprentice served. That doesn't mean that you're directly spending $6,000 on an apprentice or a pre-apprentice. It means your total grant award cannot exceed that amount. The minimum award is $75,000, and you'd need to serve at least 12 new apprentices and or pre-apprentices, and the maximum award is $250,000, serving at least 42 new apprentices or pre-apprentices. Funding for this grant opportunity must be expended by June of 2025.
All right. So we are taking questions until September 1st. So we'll make sure that if you have not already seen the RFA, I'll put the link in the chat, but it's all on the procurement website. All of the information that we covered today is in a Word document. This was pretty much copy paste. So everything that you heard today is in that document for reference. Please send any questions that either you thought of today or that you think of as you're reviewing that to Joan Dolan. Again, that email is in the RFA itself. We'll be collecting all questions through September 1st, gathering them in a Q&A document and posting all of those answers by September 12th on that procurement site as well. This recording from today's presentation and the materials will also be posted to the procurement website, and proposals are due on September 25th. So between October and November, our team will be reviewing, scoring, announcing the recipients, and working on contracting, and then the work can begin, which we're very excited about. And I think with that, we are at questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see folks. Any questions come up for folks, feel free to just unmute and shout out and we will capture it. And if we can answer it today, we will, or we will answer it in that Q&A document either way. Lane, I see your hand is up.
Hi, Lane Clark, University of New England. Sorry, I'm always the eager student who sits in the front and raises their hand first. So I apologize to my other colleagues who are on that. I just really quick with that. One of my questions, I'm only going to ask one right now, is about how many students, when you said there were kind of like different levels, right? It's 12 students or 42, and it said, or participants. Sorry, I've got the word students because I'm here in higher ed, but participants. What does that mean? Does that mean 12 of them will have had to gone all the way through the apprenticeship in the grant, or they're in the pipeline, or they're started? So can you talk a little bit more about what it means it's that language around served that's a little I'm getting hung up on.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in the application as well, there's a metrics table. So participants are individuals you are serving at the beginning of the program. You'll be asked for a separate metric on individuals completing or pre-apprentices converting into apprentices. So number served are participants that will be enrolling in programs. We anticipate a high percentage of those will be completing and continuing on to registered apprenticeship, but that baseline number served is participants in the program. Joan,
Thank you.
jump in if you want to add anything on that.
So the only thing I would add is that those are unique participants. So if Sally Smith was a pre-apprentice, it wouldn't also, I mean, you couldn't just serve 6 people. You would have to serve 12 people.
Got it.
With
And
the
they can be
minimum
served as I'm just thinking because I'm in the traditional higher ed world, and this is a short grant period. I'm like, oh, I can't get them all the way through in a year and a half kind of thing. So I just wanted to I think that's helpful.
Good question. Are there questions coming up for folks? I see lots of thinking faces. No pressure if there's not questions right now. Again, in the RFA itself, and I'm going to just grab that link now so that you've got it, but hopefully you've all seen the RFA. In the RFA itself, you will see Joan's email, and she will be the one who you'll write your questions to if you have them after the fact. We are collecting questions until end of day, September 1st. I'm going to put that link in the chat in case folks have not seen the RFA. And while I do that, Lane, feel free to jump in.
Okay, please don't. I didn't want to ask all my questions at once, but no one else is raising their hand. So somebody out there needs to ask a question so I don't have to ask another one. Can you talk a little bit about, and I think I know the distinction, but I'd love to hear it from you guys, the distinction between pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. If you can just kind of talk a little bit more about that, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Excellent question. Joan, take it away.
So pre-apprenticeship is preparing people for successful entry into registered apprenticeship. And there has to be a registered apprenticeship program or programs that they can move on into. And they move into those apprenticeship programs, hopefully with credit for things that they did, like prior learning credit. I think secondary post-secondary education is very familiar with prior learning assessments. You would want those pre-apprentices to enter into that registered apprenticeship program with credit for on-the-job learning and or classroom training, depending on what the apprenticeship program would be. And a pre-apprentice can be paid or unpaid, whereas a registered apprentice is a paid position.
So can I ask two follow-ups with that? Oh, good. And Evan has his hand up, so I'll make this quick. And that is you said registered apprentices program. So that's an apprenticeship, program that's already existing and that has been approved by you?
No.
Okay.
It's registered apprenticeship is a federal program that the state of Maine Department of Labor is empowered to administer. And there's a process to becoming a registered sponsor. So grantees would either have to connect to an existing sponsor or work to develop a new sponsor that would be registered with our program.
So if we don't have an existing one, we can always put in our proposal that we will have a registered one. Like we're moving in that direction. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to mute myself and let Evan ask a question.
Hi, everybody. Could you talk a little bit about the 144 hours of classroom or 144 hours of instruction? Does that have to take place in an accredited higher education institution? Can it take place through on-site learning or in classroom space learning?
All of the above.
All of the above. Oh, well, that's...
Yep. Registered classroom training has to be delivered by a qualified person to deliver the classroom, but it might be an adult ed. Classroom training can be delivered through a high school program, could be delivered online, in person, asynchronous, however best suits the needs of the pre-apprentices and or the apprentices.
So there's really no restrictions on what that looks like as long as it's done by a kind of recognized or
Qualified.
Qualified instructor.
A
Right.
qualified instructor.
Great. Thank you.
I'm going to give people another minute to process. Feel free to unmute and jump in if you have any other questions. If not, you are free to go. We have recorded this. As I said, please send questions to Joan. I put the link in the chat for the RFA. So all of the information we covered today is in that RFA, as well as Joan's email. So if you have another question that you think of or your team thinks of, please send it our way, and we will make sure that we provide an answer to that by September 12th on the procurement site. Thanks everyone for joining and for your interest, and we're really excited to see what innovative ideas you all come up with. I'm excited to support. Have a great afternoon. Bye everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.